Hey everybody, this is the next question in the expert question and answer series. If you have any questions you want me to address, make sure you send it to info@Multifamily Investing Academy. Just put in the subject line that this is an expert Q&A question that you'd like to have addressed. This first one comes from an investor in Canada who happens to be investing in the United States. Let me read to you, and they got this question off one of my videos. They say, my question is the way you structure seller financing with a separate operating agreement. Is that doable with an LLP or an LLP ownership structure? And I'm going to walk you through on our whiteboard exactly how I set it up using an LLC, a limited liability company. I do not use any LLPs, limited liability partnerships. Everything that I've been able to do has been done through an LLC. I love the LLC structure. It's very easy to design, to create, to come up and solve problems that you might have in the ownership arrangement of the entity. And in this particular case, we're going to use the example of the using a second mortgage, essentially using a second mortgage. But as you know, many lenders are not allowing you to use second mortgages. So the way that we get around it is by creating a very special class within the LLC. And right now we're going to jump on over to our whiteboard and I'll show you exactly how it works. Here's my big whiteboard, and here's what I'm going to walk you through right now. Just understanding exactly how you need to structure this so that it does what you're looking for it to do. All right. Now, the fact is, we're talking about limited liability companies. And when we talk about limited liability companies, we do not talk about stock. Never say the word stock when you're talking about a limited liability company. What you want to say is membership interest. Okay, that's what you're buying when you're buying into a limited liability company. The membership interest comes with two attachments. It comes with the economic interests and the management rights, the economic rights and the management rights of the membership interest. I'm going to explain more about that when we do our next look over my shoulder call, because I'm going to show you how we were able to acquire control of a property by being able to separate those two rights within the membership document. Very interesting video. Keep your eyes peeled for it. It'll be probably showing up next month. Okay, so you get the limited liability company, and the governing document is what's called the operating agreement, the OA. So when you hear somebody talk about the OA, you know they're talking about an LLC. And the OA is what all the things that you've talked about with your investors about how the company is going to be run are all going to be put into the operating agreement by your attorney so that everything goes very, very smoothly. Now, the beautiful thing about the limited liability company is that you're able to design it any way you want. You can have different classes of membership, and that's how we solve this problem that these people wrote in about. All right. So what's the first class? The first class is always, as I always design it, it's called we call it class A. All right. Now, who is going to be in Class A? The easiest way to say is you. You're going to be the members of Class A. All the people in your group that have sponsored this, that have gone out and found this deal, all the people that are the ones that have put this whole entire deal together, they are the Class A members. Now, what do you get with being a Class A member? You're going to get total control of the property. So the way that the operating agreement is structured is that you are going to sit back and nobody is going to be able to tell you how to run this property. The operating agreement is going to say, we do it this way. All right, so that's the first thing you're going to go after with being in the Class A membership. You want to run the show. You don't want these other guys showing up telling you how to run the property. Hey, you put that deal together. That's your baby. So you're going to receive total control, but it's going to be explained in the Class A membership within the operating agreement. All right. Next thing is no cash. You're not coming to the table with any cash.
You know, we're buying property, no money down, and this is how it's done. Money will show up at the closing table, it's just not your money. But for that no cash and for that total control and for putting the whole deal together, you are going to get a membership interest, okay? Now, how much? Well, that depends upon how rich the deal is. Right? You could get 50% ownership of the deal. You could get 60%. You could get 30%. It really depends upon how rich the deal is. All right, so those are just some of the highlights to the benefits of being in Class A, of being the person that goes out and sponsors the deal. All right, so there's Class A. The next class is what we like to affectionately call Class B. The Class B members. Now remember, the Class B members, for all intents and purposes, under most circumstances, is everybody else. All the people that are not in Class A are going to fall into Class B. Now, they have no control. They don't tell you how to run the property. Now, by statute, every state that has a limited liability act, there are provisions in that act that still protect Class B or any other members from certain events occurring, like breach of fiduciary responsibility. All right, if there's a breach by the Class A members, the Class B members can get control. But the way we write the operating agreement is that as long as it doesn't violate the act, and we have wording in there that basically says that, these Class B members will not be able to vote on how the asset is run. All right, so that is the no control function of the Class B. They bring all the cash to the table. So if you need $1 million, Class A brings no cash, Class B brings $1 million of cash. And for that, they get the remaining membership interest in the deal. All right, so if, for instance, the deal was 50-50, the 50% membership interest here, if you can see this on the board, and the remaining 50% comes to these people for putting in $1 million. So the property is capitalized to the tune of $1 million. You own 50% of an asset that just has $1 million put into it. That looks really good on your balance sheet. Doesn't mean it's in your bank account, but it looks really good on your balance sheet that you now own an asset, which is the Class A membership, that is worth at least $1 million of equity. Okay, so that is how the Class A and the Class B work. Now remember, the reason why we're having this conversation is the question that was asked is, what do you do about people or investors or the seller wanting to put a second mortgage on the property and the bank won't let you? How do you solve that? Okay, so here's the next part. This is the Class C that we call. Now remember, we have a problem. We have asked the owner to provide seller financing and he said yes. And then the bank came back and said no. But you're counting on that money to help you close. So how can you solve the problem to satisfy the seller, who's going to give you money but wants security, and the bank, who says you can't take that money and pledge the property in any way, shape, manner, or form? How do you solve that problem? And the answer is, because of the flexibility of the limited liability company structure, that's how you're going to solve it. What you're going to do is create another class of membership. Now, the only person who's going to be in this class is the seller, who's giving you that second mortgage, but it's not a mortgage, who's going to give you that seller financing. He's the only member of that class. And we write that class up in such a way that it is going to look, act, and feel just like a second mortgage. And here's what I mean. The membership rights to this class will provide him with no control whatsoever over the property. He has no voting rights whatsoever. He does not say what happens to that deal. Okay? That's number one. Number two is that his distributions get paid first. In other words, you, as members of this LLC, will not see a dime out of this deal until he gets paid first. Kind of like a mortgage. If you don't pay the mortgage, don't expect to receive a dividend distribution. the bank's going to come in and take it. So in order to make him feel good about providing you with this seller financing, you're going to write it up so that the distributions are paid to him first. All right? Now, there's going to be a flat valuation on his membership interest. In other words, if he says he's going to give you $250,000 in the form of seller financing, all right, well, the value of that class is $250,000. And I'll explain why that makes sense in just a moment, all right? Other classes do not have that type of valuation. This particular class does, and you'll see why. If you breach any portion of this thing, of class, the member gets control. What do I mean by that? If you don't pay him the distribution, if he doesn't get this money, you're in breach, and he can come in and take control of the property. Now you might think that sounds harsh, but isn't that what a mortgage does? It's looking, acting, and feeling exactly like a second mortgage. So that's another provision you're going to put into this operating agreement under this Class C to make the seller feel good about him giving you the security. And then the final point that I'm just going to raise, and there are going to be many other issues that you really need to have a local attorney who understands the Liability Act, Limited Liability Act of that state, draft your operating agreement, okay? The last class is upon sale or refinance of the property, this class goes away. And how does it go away? You're going to pay off this flat valuation. That's why we name it early on. You're going to pay this. Any outstanding distributions that you still owe are going to get paid, and then that class goes away. And you are left with Class A and Class B, just like you wanted to in the first place. Everybody's happy. Everything gets taken care of. So that is how you structure seller financing without putting any debt on the property. You do it all through the operating agreement of the limited liability company. It's that simple. But don't try to go it alone. Make sure you have an attorney looking over your shoulder to make sure it gets done properly. That's the expert answer. Please heed my advice. Don't try to be a legal Zoom type of guy. This structure is very complicated and needs to be done correctly. That's the end of this expert Q&A. I hope this was helpful. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you have any other questions, if you have anything, just shoot us an email at info@multifamilyinvestingacademy.com, and you will probably end up on the next video. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next month.